Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Overlook News with me and Z. How you doing today, Z?
Good. I know we've been doing a couple episodes a little bit far in between, like the year's slowing down a little bit and holidays are ramping up, and it's
Yeah.
just, yeah. So
Oh,
as soon as the new year kicks back in, we've been talking about some things behind the scenes, and
for sure.
but today is still a good day.
Today is still a good day. You've got your drink gone and everything. So, today we're gonna be talking about a couple of cool things. We're gonna be talking to our special guest today, Sabby Sabs. As I'm sure many of you know her from RBN, and she also has her own channel as well. Why don't we bring in Sabby here? And how you doing?
Hey guys.
Hey, so I guess I wanted to ask how's it been going as far as the show RBN? I see you guys are growing. Your channel's growing. How are you dealing with all the cuz I'm sure DMs are flooded. People are just yeah.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, we've been really busy, especially the past, I would say 3 months. There was a couple of direct action events that we were involved in as well. I was in DC recently for the Assange event, came back, and I also did a housing event. Andrew, I think you've done one of these as well, talking to residents that are in project housing here in Boston about the conditions that they're living in. I've been talking with United Front Against Displacement also about a lot of the housing issues here in Boston. I've been talking to teachers here about the education issue. So we've been really busy, but I like being busy. I'd rather be busy than than not busy. But in reference to DMs, I'll be honest, most of the time when I'm on Twitter, I just post and hop off. Because I find Twitter to be toxic and it consumes a lot of my time. So I don't know how people are on there all day. I don't get it. But in reference to DMs, I close my DMs to people that I don't follow back because it's just you get bombarded with so many messages and I don't read half of them if I don't know you. It's a lot. We get a lot of trolls. Those of us at RBN. So yeah, definitely. Lately, I've been spending less time on Twitter.
Yeah, that's been happening, especially since in the last week or two, since Mr. Elon has bought it, and it's been I thought it was gonna be a lot more subtle, but it has been an immediate turn to shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not that it was any better, but it actually has gotten noticeably worse, even though it was already bad.
Well, yes, he's been censoring people that talk about him badly. It's just. So I'm just what the heck, man? I don't know. It's not a great place to be right now.
No, it's not. And speaking of UFA, United Front, we're actually going over. They sent us a Michelle Wu story that we're going to be going over today. And we're going to be getting some.
You probably have some of
Yeah. So I want to hear both of y'all's perspective from that because I watched it. I read that and I was looking for some videos, but I couldn't find any news things or anything about just the project in its own. So.
Well, that's the thing is that it's hard to get this type of information, and that's on purpose. But
exactly,
we'll talk about that in a second.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So, I guess Z, do you want to just go on to some of the questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, watch a lot of your content, and you cover a wide array of topics, right? And I just wanted to know what is your process deciding what to cover and what not to? Because there's so much, and how do you usually? And then you have to, and then I know you're on RBN as well, and so what do you choose? How do you go? I want to put this on my show, or I'm going to go over this on RBN, or.
Yeah, good question. In reference to RBN, I try not to cover a story that's already been covered on RBN. So typically what I'll do is the night before I will go through news stories and I usually come up with about 10 stories and I narrow them down from there. Yeah. That's the hardest part is deciding which ones to cover because sometimes there's so many good stories and you're I only have this amount of time. to cover. So I need to narrow down at least to 4 stories on my channel and 2 stories on RBN. So for RBN, it's a little bit easier because I know, for example, if Nick and CJ have covered the Walmart shooter story, I'm not going to cover that again because they already covered it. So in that case, it's a little bit easier. On my channel is where it's harder. It's more difficult because it's just me. So it's like
I can do whatever I want, and it's like
right. And so and there's times when like I've chosen like 4 stories, and the next day I'm like, maybe I should have chosen another one. So sometimes I'm not really 100% confident about the choices that I selected, but I try to do news within 48 hours.
Yeah.
So with the exception of the weekend, because I don't live stream on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So if a story came out Monday, I try to have that covered. If it came out Monday morning, I try to cover that at least by Tuesday night.
Okay.
If it came out Friday afternoon, I'm probably not going to get to that till Monday. So I try to do it in a timely manner. It doesn't always work out that way, but I'm not one of those people that will just jump on stream the minute a story breaks. I don't operate that way. I have to be able to like watch the video, read the article, take a couple of notes, do a little bit of research so I can dive into it a little bit deeper. But I don't do that. I don't like the Trump announcement, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of people did that. As soon as he announced, they're like, let's go and live stream. I don't operate well that way. Like I like to research it first and then add a little bit more information to it.
Exactly.
So that is something that I do differently.
Yeah, I think that definitely. I'm hearing myself feedback somewhere.
A little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I think that like that actually that's a good way to do it. I think that like sometimes on our show we have a little bit of issues just like trying to choose topics, and like I think the narrowing down thing is something that I'm gonna like start approaching a little bit better.
Yeah, but thank you for saying that, Z. I was told recently I only talk about podcasters, so thank you for saying that.
Well, I mean, and watching the show, it's like I'm like, there's a lot of stuff that Sabby actually talks about a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah, I try to mix it up a bit because I find I had to ask myself like, why is it I don't watch people that I used to watch 2 years ago? And it's because they do the same thing. They haven't evolved.
They're stuck in those years.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck in that time frame. And so for me, I try to offer different types of content. I try to cover some type of foreign policy, domestic issues, political news, worker stories, policing stories, and I try to implement a little bit of local news too, because there's a lot of things that happen around here in Massachusetts that if you don't live here, you're not hearing these stories for the most part. So I try to cover a little bit of everything. I have made changes on foreign policy, and I have decided that I'm not going to focus as heavily on Russia and Ukraine anymore, not necessarily because of the censorship, but because everybody is covering that. So for me, I decided to cover more or focus more on the countries that I feel are not heavily covered, like Haiti and Dominican Republic, what's going on over there, what's happening in Ethiopia. So I'm trying to focus more on the countries where there's people, where there's Black people and people of color that are not being covered as much as the European countries. So I have made changes there.
Definitely. I think we did that. We decided to do that too. We stopped. We'll talk about Ukraine and Russia like every now and then, but we were covering like the protests in Sri Lanka. Was it Sri Lanka? We're covering the president of Sri Lanka. We're trying to cover things like that, like anything happening in South America, like you said, in Africa going on, and because everyone is just everybody. Since you know how everyone knows how it is at the moment with Ukraine and Russia, and it's just it's annoying as hell. That's to put it lightly.
Yeah.
I think too, it's like, I don't know about you, but when you're actually trying to do and put together shows, it takes away the energy and time you have to watch other people. I mean, I definitely try and make time to watch other shows, but it's sort of like it gets a little bit more difficult. And then sometimes you're kind of like, I don't want to get too caught up on what someone is saying about a certain topic, because then that could overly influence my take, and I want to try and be as fresh as possible and see it. It's almost impossible because you just go on Twitter and then you've got like 100 takes all at once, right? Some of them that are, well thought out, others that are like, you're just typing words, and like I don't, but so
Right.
but it is it can be a lot to kind of try and get
I
together.
usually don't catch people when they're live. I usually watch the replay because usually I'm either busy with something else at that time or I'm live the same time they're live.
Yeah.
But also the reason that you just pointed out, I don't want to be influenced. If we're covering the same story, I don't want what they're saying to influence what I say later on that night.
Yeah. I think like I'm usually researching or like reading. So it's like it's a little bit harder to sometimes I watch things just like, and it's gonna be something I'm gonna watch that I want to put in the show. But like besides like just watching a full show, like if I'm researching something, I'm usually just not invested in like someone else talk because I'm trying to get my own opinion, trying to form my own opinion, and like you said, like just getting multiple sources, because a lot of times it does seem like people just copy and paste things and didn't do any research on it, and they end up saying something that they had to take. Well, they either don't take back because they know it's blatantly wrong and they want to keep going with it, or they just don't want to admit they're wrong. So it's like I'd rather just wait and get the best information I can, and then come out with it, like you said, like the next day or like a couple days later, opposed to live. And a lot of times live, like I'm not that great live, so sometimes I have to go back and sometimes I edit things out. So,
So, going off a little bit of what we were talking about, there obviously is there's been a rift on the left for a while, right? And a lot of times it comes down to that some people still believe in the electoral system while others are advocating to work outside of it. And of course, it's a spectrum, right? It's not always one or the other, but it does sort of at times be simplified into those two camps in a sense. And I feel like that is where a lot of the rift comes. It comes in different forms, but maybe you disagree, but I think that's the basis and foundation of where a lot of these spouts come from sometimes, right? Do you think there is a place to meet in the middle at all between these two groups? And I guess going off of that, what do you feel is the biggest challenge that the left needs to overcome?
Good question. I'll be honest with you with the first part of your question. I can't speak for everyone else, but in terms of meeting in the middle, I have tried that.
Yeah.
And I've tried it in different ways. I've tried it through summits, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you guys know we do like a lot of summits. I've tried it through that way, focusing on issues that we all are concerned about, like, for example, healthcare or women's rights issues. Like I've tried it that way.
Yeah.
What I have found is that this space is very territorial in the sense that some people don't want to be on a panel with another person for whatever reason, and it may have nothing to do with electoralism. So these are some of the challenges that I've run into, and those of us at RBN have run into when we do these panels and we do these summits. There are certain people that don't want to be on a panel with someone else. We've tried to meet people that way, like in the middle. Then the other aspect that comes along with this is brand. There are some people that may feel that it hurts their brand to have those conversations with the people who disagree with them on strategy. And so I get that too, depending on who their employer is. That's another thing. Not all of us are truly independent. Some people have sponsorships, right? Like we don't have a sponsor, like at RBN, I don't have a sponsor. So that's part of it. And some people feel it may hurt their money, like, to be honest with you. So I think for people who this is their career, like this is so they may be sponsored by, like, for example, TYT has sponsors. Obviously, they mentioned this in their show. David Pakman has sponsors. But there's other people who they may not necessarily have a sponsor on YouTube per se, but they have people that donate and subscribe to them or have subscriptions to them. And these are people who are wealthy.
Right.
So they may not like them talking to someone who is, I don't know, like us, that's anti-war. So there's those things that come into play as well. So I have tried that, unless, someone else may know of a different strategy, But I got to tell you, from my experiences, like putting together like these summits, putting people on panels, even when I did the women's summit, it's very frustrating
Yeah.
when you're just trying to bring people together on a panel to talk about like domestic violence, for example. And there has to be
Mhm.
one person that jumps in and says, "Who's on the panel? I don't want to be on a panel with that person." It's very frustrating. And so that right there let me know the left that we see today, it may have been this way before. I don't know. I was in the space then.
Right.
But the left that since I have been in the space, what I've noticed is they're not as unified as I thought that they were.
Mhm.
And before they were unified around Bernie Sanders campaigns. Well, since Bernie lost twice in a row,
Yeah.
after that, people didn't really know where to go. There's no
Mhm.
leader of this movement. So people have kind of gone in different directions, and that's their thing. That's totally whatever they want to do. But in order to get everybody back together again, I think it's too far gone now because people are so focused on certain personalities and some people are focused on a brand. And so it's gotten to that point now where some people just don't want to hurt their brand and they feel if they appear on screen with a certain person, that's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah. No, you brought up some good points. Before we talk about sort of housing Michelle Wu, because I definitely want to get some of that in to get some of your thoughts on that. You brought up a couple of interesting points when it came to sponsorship, right? And how some people think it hurts their brand. Have people said, I'm not asking obviously for specifics, but have people said who you've tried to put together on panels that I can't be with this person because my sponsorship or where I'm getting my money from won't let me? Like, has that actually been a reason someone has given you, or has it been more of like that's what you kind of think through X, Y, and Z?
Yes, but not in those specific words.
Okay.
And it usually would not come directly from them, it would come from their assistant. So
Huh.
it's there are some people who don't like when you contact them for like interview or whatever, you're not talking to them, you're talking to their assistant.
Okay.
And so some people don't control their own Twitter accounts, for example. So
Yeah.
that's something that you'll run into. I think, there's been a lot of things that have been said, and there's a lot of personalities that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people need to take their focus off of the personality. And I've been guilty of this too, because it was just a couple of days ago, I was arguing like on Twitter, me calling a bunch of other people back and forth because Mike Figueredo from the Humanist Report
Uh-huh.
decided to call us names. And
Yeah.
I got mad at myself after that, the fact that I actually even responded to him, because usually I just ignore that shit. And for people who were watching this, I don't even look at my mentions. So it's really funny to me. People are like, I tagged you into it. Yeah, I don't see any of that shit. I don't look at any of it. I don't have time for that. Some people do. I don't have time for it. But I think that there's so much focus on personalities. So people are more focused on this person said X, Y, and Z. And because it's that person that they don't like, they'll heavily attack them. And if you don't join them in attacking them, then they'll start to smear you too. But they won't say anything if it's a different person who says the exact same thing that person said. They won't say anything because that person still supports the Democratic Party. So it's a big problem that I've noticed that's like on the left. That's why especially a lot of this takes place on Twitter and then it transfers onto like YouTube videos and
Mhm.
YouTube shows. There's a lot of drama, and at the same time, nothing is getting done.
No.
Well, before we move on to that, I wanted to say, yeah, number one, like the Mike Figueredo thing is like a tinier like moment in like a larger trend that I see of like big, especially bigger white podcasters who are just dismissive of anybody who are or anybody or anything who are usually more left than them, and and usually are the ones being affected by the issues that they claim to care about and like are talking about, and then they'll just like brush off anything anybody else says. Like I saw it with Mike Figueroa. I've seen like there was a thing going on Twitter where I don't know if y'all know who the podcaster Keffels is, but Keffels was like she's transgender, but she was using her identity to pretty much attack a black trans woman, and her whole like I don't know, it was Kiwi Farms, and it was this whole thing. It's this whole like right wing thing, but she pretty much had her attacked. And then you saw that with Brianna Joy Gray, like about 3 weeks ago with the what was that? I don't even know that guy's name. I don't really give a shit. But he had his whole like crew pretty much attack her, and it's just a broader trend. I see that a lot there's a lot of like white podcasters, and especially in the bigger realms, that like are pretty much just racists who want healthcare and weed legal, in my opinion. And I can't help but think that, like, if given the opportunity to do that, once they get their things settled, they're gonna abandon the left or abandon all of that. So,
right.
And that's one thing. And then I see like another trend, like you said, the personalities. Like, there are certain people who they don't like, but like literally they'll just blame that person for literally every single thing. They'll blame that person or the brand for every single thing that happens, and you're just like, they have no control. Like even if you don't even agree with that person, there's no way that like that person has like control over every single bad thing that happens. It's just a bunch of distractions, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, that's why, those of us at RBN came into the space, is because we did notice that there weren't as many Black people like in this space. And at the same time, it was just like, we're not allowed to lead anything. Like they're the leaders and we're just supposed to follow. And if we try to go against the grain, then we're a problem. And so that's one of the reasons why why we get attacked so much, because we're telling people like, yeah, we tried it your way. We already did this. Now we're moving on to something else. And so they don't like that because we're not listening. And the other thing I noticed too, as well, as you mentioned, these things that have been happening on Twitter recently, those things have been happening behind the scenes at least as long as I've been in this space. Now it's just more in a public forum. People were able to see it publicly, but that type of rhetoric, the way that certain people, especially Black people, are spoken to in this space by rich, and I say rich because a lot of these podcasters come from wealthy families. They've never been poor. They've never been working class. Some of them are millionaires, by the way. They don't really know what that experience is like, but they'll talk down to Black people who have been working class or have been poor and know what the experience is like, because this is an area that they claim to know so much about, but they really don't. And they kind of see us as a threat in a sense, because we have the lived experience. So that's a part of it. But we saw this as well when Jink had the discussion with Brianna Joy Gray. Look at the way that he spoke to her. Look at the way that he spoke to Olamide Lauren when she talked to him about police abolition. This has been a constant trend. I think more people just weren't really calling it out. But if people saw some of the things that were happening behind the scenes from day one when I joined, people would have known like what was really going on in this space. And that's the thing. It's like, even though they'll say, yeah, we need more diversity, they don't want that many of us. And even those of us at RBN, there's 5 of us, right? That's too many to them. That's too many. So there's this belief like, yeah, we want to have Black voices, but we don't want that many. That's too many, because then you're considered a mob. And that's not just in independent media. That's in the workplace. That's in corporate America. That's in education. And that's a big problem. And so I think that it's unfortunate what we've seen happen over the past couple of weeks on social media, but it was very telling to me how many people who were willing to jump in and defend Brianna Joy Gray when she was getting racist attacks from people on Twitter. Most of the big like white podcasters were silent. Most of them didn't say anything. Even the ones who love to talk about drama all the time, they didn't talk about that story. So people see it. And I think it's just, I'm glad more people have woken up to this now, but I've seen this from day one since I've been in this space.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to get your take on it, because it's like apparent. I haven't been in this space that long. I've only been in this space, I'd say like a little bit over a year. So it's like, but that's enough time to see like what's going on. But before you go, we want to go over this Michelle Wu story, because I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I'll just read real quick. So this is GBH here. Michelle Wu announced Friday the city will direct $60 million of the American Rescue Plan Act dollars to affordable housing in the city by making 150 city-owned lots available for developers and by funding financial assistance program. Wu told Boston Public Radio more than 300 homes for income-restricted buyers would be to be built on those lots. Our federal dollars are being put to work right directly for that at a time when many other cities are still trying to figure out what to do with all their recovery dollars. We've said housing is a priority. Earlier this year, the Boston Planning and Development Agency completed a survey of all city-owned property to find an inventory of vacant or underutilized land that could be developed into affordable housing. Many of the parcels are in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan by design. Wu says the money will be used to subsidize the homes themselves and 3 financial assistance programs for prospective home buyers. Just for context, Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan have historically been red line neighborhoods. And so they're, Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan do have a majority of Black populations, and that was historically by design through redlining that they kind of pushed communities all in those neighborhoods. So that just adds some context to this story, just for people who aren't in the area. According to a press release from the city, Boston will issue a request for proposals for the first 70 parcels in early 2023 to create homes for residents to own. Additionally, some of the federal money will be used to bolster first-time homebuyer programs. We're also creating a pathway for residents of the Boston Housing Authority publicly subsidized housing to go directly from subsidized housing to home ownership, skipping through the gauntlet of can you find a place to rent. And so, that's essentially what is happening. Yeah, Healy, who is the first, I believe she's the first gay woman to be elected governor, right? Mm-hmm. She does not support a statewide rent control measure, but has so far left the door open to local options. So this is essentially what this policy is. And then United Front Against Displacement, which Sabby, thank you for giving my attention to them and everything. It's been great getting to know their work and such through this.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they're great. So this article from So They Say is a great example of how the news media reprints politicians' distortions of reality as fact. A $60 million affordable housing program sounds great, right? Well, not so much. GBH writes the funding is making 150 city-owned lots available for developers and by funding financial assistance program. Wu says the money will be used to subsidize the homes themselves and 3 financial assistance program for prospective home buyers. So basically, the city is giving public land away to private developers and paying them to construct a few cheap homes and all to create affordable home ownership units that even most politicians agree aren't affordable. Wu goes on to say, we're also creating a pathway for residents of the Boston Housing Authority publicly subsidizing housing to go directly from subsidized housing to home ownership. Translation, we want people out of public housing so they can start paying mortgages to the bank. Again, this all sounds nice if you don't think about it, but really it lined up perfectly with the current bipartisan consensus to fund public housing, get people out the door however possible, and use the remaining tax money to line the pockets of the rich.
That's right.
Yeah. So, Sabby, I'll give you an opportunity to kind of add anything give your thoughts and reactions to that.
This is, the key word there is developers, right? And some people are going to read that article and skip right over that word and not make the connection. But that's the important part is that, and this isn't just happening in Boston, it's happening in cities across the United States, but where they trick people is they use this term affordable housing without explaining to people what affordable is or what the affordability is, right? In Massachusetts, this is based on area median income, but that includes suburban areas outside of Boston. That also includes the southern part or some southern parts of New Hampshire as well. So the income requirement, it doesn't really match up with a lot of the people that live in those neighborhoods in Boston. If you're living in a suburban town like Concord, which is also outside of Boston, chances are your income is going to be a lot higher than someone that's living in like Mattapan that's working class. That's the problem, but that's still factored into the area median income. So the problem they're going to run into is they're going to tell you a certain income requirement that you have to even be able to participate, right? Then you end up with that group of people that they kind of fall in the middle where they don't actually meet that requirement. They don't make enough to get affordable housing, but at the same time, they don't make too little to be a part of public housing. So those
Yeah.
people are
Always
going to
get
be
left
stuck.
out.
Yeah, those people are going to be stuck. And then you have the people who are in public housing units that are falling apart. They may look at it as though, oh, there's more affordable housing coming. But guess what? Most of them won't meet the requirement to get into the affordable housing because they don't make enough money. And all this is going to do, yeah, they'll build more like affordable housing or whatever, but this is just going to be a profit. They make it seem like they're really trying to help people, but they're not really trying to help working class and poor people. So the city's going to profit from it. Those developers are going to profit from it. And this is what I believe the plan is based on the complaints I've heard from the residents. I believe the plan is to just let the housing project units fall apart, to deteriorate, to push those residents out, push them, they'll be pushed further outside the city based on affordability. Then they'll tear those buildings down and they'll build luxury condos. That's what happened in the South End. That's what we saw happen in South Boston.
Yep.
And these were places where they were working class communities that lived there. It's not that way anymore. But Boston has basically become a city for people that have money.
Yeah.
And we saw that happen with San Francisco, right? So, I mean, people are just being pushed further and further out because it's just not affordable for the average person anymore.
That's happening. I'm in Greenville, South Carolina, and that also happens. That's literally what goes on. They'll push people out. They'll build some luxury apartments, and like 2 people will live in the whole thing, and because no one can afford it, and they're always empty, and you're just driving around and you see these developments. No one lives in them because no one can afford them, and it's wasteful. There's 23 homes to every homeless person in the U.S. and can't find anybody a house. It's on purpose.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like I said, it's happening everywhere, but it's just Boston is one of those cities where it's very expensive here, and I think that more and more people have just moved further out, and I think that will continue because people just can't afford it for so long. But the affordable housing thing, it's a gimmick. They never really explain to you what affordable housing really is. Notice she didn't mention an income requirement in that article, or they didn't mention an income requirement. So it makes it seem like she's doing something good for the people, when in reality, this is just another way for developers and banks to get paid.
And they're not going to mention, like you said, the developers. They're not going to ever mention that those are private companies. Right. It's going straight to the, like there's not going to be like, oh, it's just developer. They're like quotation marks. It's not public developer, developing project. It's a private. So it's going straight to like a company.
Well, and then the affordable housing too. They take when they take affordable, they take the average income, I believe, of like the greater Boston area, right? There's a lot of rich suburbs right outside of Boston proper that are included in that, right? And so that's really inflates the affordability up really high. One thing too that I've noticed, I don't know about if you've noticed, Sabrina, but when it comes to the city councilors, right? Kind of, you know how like Medicare for all is like the number one thing that progressive politicians love to pivot to before they get elected, and then when they're elected, it's kind of like, oh, have you really said much about Medicare for all?
Access to healthcare.
That's rent control is that issue. In Boston, you hear it so much when these new city councilors are trying to get, or these candidates are trying to become city councilors. They talk about rent control all the time. I know Julia Mejia was big on rent control. Michelle Wu had rent control in her campaign. I have not heard her talk about rent control ever since she was elected mayor.
When I was looking for when I was telling y'all that I was looking for videos, that's why I typed in like literally that's all that popped up was Michelle Wu rent control campaign, like all of these things about her talking
2020.
About it. Yeah, they were all from like 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting too because Marty Walsh said, well, before he transitioned into DC, Marty Walsh said during a conference that we can't do rent control. He explained this multiple times. He explained it during the debate that he had with Tito Jackson. He said, look, we can't do rent control, but we don't even have rent stabilization either. There's no stability. The landlords can increase the rent as much as they want because there's no cap. So it's just, I don't know. It's just become a playground for the rich. And it's really interesting because at one point in time, Boston did have rent control. So they're just serving. They're serving the rich. They're serving corporate interest.
Exactly. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Sabby. Do you have any like final plugs or anything you want to say before heading out?
Just check me out this week on my channel, Sabby Sabs. I have a couple of, or well, actually a lot of news stories coming up this week, and then hopefully a couple more interviews too. I will be talking to the organizers from Mass Care. They're going to come on to talk about their initiative to try to get single payer in Massachusetts. So look for that.
Awesome. And hopefully we can talk to you again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Just, you know how it is. Just give me a heads up and I'll be around. All
right.
That's great. Take
Bye.
Care. Bye.
So, I think next we could talk a little bit about. You want to talk about Amazon or Twitter?
Let's talk about Amazon and then round it out with Twitter, because that's gonna be fun. That'll be a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
It's Twitter. I don't even like. It's been wild just seeing Twitter melt down in real time. It's and just from like one tweet goes out and it's been funny because I think it's been uniting a lot of sides in hating, but at the same time it's been really weird because you have so many like it just shows how many people just like kiss billionaire butt. And it gets gross out there where people are just like, oh, Elon's so great. Like, he's so great. It's like,
right.
Oh my God. But we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. So, Amazon, as some of you may or may not know, there were a Black Friday saw worldwide a lot of different protests. Well, I should say strikes on Black Friday, right? Black Friday, obviously, being one of Amazon's probably their most profitable day of the year. And so from Germany and France to the United States, from India to Japan and the UK, Amazon's employees down their tools or join marches on Friday demanding better working conditions and fair wages. Make Amazon Pay Coalition was behind this. I'm going to actually be showing a website in a second that has their specific demands that Make Amazon Pay came up with on an international scale, which I found very interesting because you don't really see demands on an international scale too often.
That's actually very cool.
Yeah, it is. And you'll see too. I mean, I'll show it. Some of it is a little vague because when it comes to wages and, there's different realities.
You have to be like,
on where you are in the world. But it is interesting, and I definitely want to kind of highlight that.
It's not a climate thing.
Yeah. So in France, where union groups SUD and CGT called for strike actions in the country's 8 warehouses, campaigners said 60 people were demonstrating in front of Amazon's, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, site near Paris on Friday morning, with another 50 staying at home out of a total of 5,000 full-time and temporary employees at that location. Amazon France claims there was no sign of disruption to operations so far. It is worth mentioning that it looks like a good portion of them decided to work, and then there were some vocal people who decided to make it known that they weren't. And then in the U.S., workers at an Amazon facility in St. Peters, Missouri, walked off their jobs while unions represented retail workers in New York City. Staged demonstrations outside of Amazon owner Jeff Bezos' apartment building. So there was no immediate comment from Amazon U.S. I like that. They were like, France, but we're not. They went outside Jeff Bezos' house. We don't really want to bring attention to that. Protests and rallies also took place in several other countries and territories, including Argentina, Ireland, South Africa, Palestine, Bangladesh, and Australia. Love that Al Jazeera Says that, yeah.
Heck
Didn't
yeah.
even notice that the first time I read it.
That's because that's because it should be normal. You should just be like Palestine, and like no one should blink an eye.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
That's awesome though.
And so
Israel who?
Yes. And so yeah, Amazon, which has a global workforce of more than 1.5 million, most of whom are hourly workers, had refused to recognize trade unions. Of course, we've talked about this. So yeah, let me stop sharing this, and then let's go to this right here, where I want to. Sorry, were you going to say something?
Weird. You get thinking about. I was just thinking about, like you said, talking about Palestine. It's like that is weird thinking about Amazon just being like in Palestine. It's like get the hell out of here,
right? So, the Make Amazon Pay Coalition has released a set of common demands that workers and their allies are placing on the company and the governments of the countries it operates in around the globe. Individuals and organizations can support the coalition by adding their name to the demands, directly telling Jeff Bezos to make Amazon pay. Let me just go down to the global demands here. Improve the workplace by raising workers' pay in all Amazon warehouses in line with the increasing wealth of the corporation, right? Negotiate adequate break times to ensure safe work, suspending the harsh productivity and surveillance regime Amazon has used to squeeze workers, extending paid sick leave, allowing workers in sites without workplace representation to independently elect in health and safety commissions. So we can definitely include this link on the description as well, because this is pretty cool. But I love how they say ending all forms of casual employment and bogus self-employment or contractor status, right? Because I think wasn't there that statistic where it's like 60% of the people who actually do work for Amazon don't actually work for Amazon? I think that's like I've seen that
somewhere.
previously.
It's like that's awesome.
Yeah. Let me fact check, Tick. Go ahead. Say what you're going to say. I'll fact check.
Isn't there there is a climate thing in there,
Let me see. I'm busy looking at. Do you see a climate thing?
Yeah, I think there was a climate demand in there, which is pretty. That stuck out to me when I was watching the video a little bit earlier. Like I was like, huh, which is awesome because they understand. That means they understand that like companies are doing most of the pollution, not people. Just individuals.
Right. Yeah.
Ending union busting. Nice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing we're talking about, the union busting is egregious at
committing
Amazon.
to zero emissions by 2030. That's what. Yeah.
Stopping all sponsoring of climate change and nihilism.
Yeah. And there's the signatures there. So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll include that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully, I mean, we'll see. Again, if they make this, they keep doing this every year, hopefully more and more workers will continue to strike, right? Sounds like they made some noise. It didn't, it doesn't look like they really disrupted Amazon to the point where they cringed and shut down, right? But it's noticed.
In the beginning.
It's the beginning. So
exactly.
It is cool that we're working. They're trying to do what they can to work on international solidarity and such. So, yeah.
Let's share that video real fast. Okay, I'm on there. I'll make Amazon Pay. Make Amazon Pay also has a Twitter page. That's where I was. They have all the things on there. There's actually a picture of Chris Smalls in here right now. I haven't heard much from the Amazon Labor Union, ALU, lately.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
that's the thing. It's like this is a very different leadership than the ALU. But it does make me wonder because here we have like people in Missouri, a bunch of people in Missouri walked out, right? So the energy is there. It's just it kind of is almost like when it comes to elections, right? The energy is there for a lot of progressive policy, but it doesn't seem like it's always translating to the ballot box. And so I do wonder what is happening specifically with Amazon, because it does seem to be specifically an Amazon issue and not as much other places that are doing the same type of organizing and union work. So, yeah.
I'm gonna. Here's a little bit more of a visual.
Black Friday. Sounds kind of scary. And it was.
Why?
Now, for a rough Black Friday weekend as workers at the online retail giant threatened strikes during the year's busiest shopping period.
Might be Black Friday. Thousands of Amazon workers, more than a dozen countries now on strike as part of the Make Amazon Pay campaign.
Un mouvement de grève générale dont on parle beaucoup sur Internet.
For Amazon, it will mark a worldwide strike by its employees.
Amazon está amenazada, como decimos, por esas huelgas.
The protest covers every major market for the company, including the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, India, and Bangladesh in South Asia, major European countries like the United Kingdom, France, Belgium, and Spain, South Africa, also Brazil and Argentina.
A strike worldwide, according to Make Amazon Pay, a coalition of workers and activists. The group is demanding that the company increase wages, pay more taxes, and reduce the company's carbon footprint.
They say Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is busy expanding his business in space, but here on Earth, Amazon workers are suffering.
The strikes will take place at Amazon facilities, including factories, warehouses, and corporate offices.
Plantas de refinería de petróleo, hasta centros de datos, las oficinas centrales, fábricas y almacenes. Así que, como decimos, afectaría a toda la cadena de suministro.
An mehreren deutschen Standorten des Online-Händlers Amazon haben nach Angaben der Gewerkschaft Verdi Mitarbeiter ihre Arbeit niedergelegt.
People are protesting Amazon around the globe today, and some workers planning to strike. The group Extinction Rebellion blocking access to 13 different warehouses.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't finished it earlier, and that was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we can.
Do you think we could do Twitter later in the week just to give it a little bit more time? So
yes, I would like to. Maybe actually, we could probably see if we can. We'll talk about that after. But yeah,
okay,
we'll do that. We'll do that.
Cool.
All right, but besides that, what do you got going on? What's coming up?
Yeah, not too much, honestly. Yeah,
no.
Just chilling.
I guess we'll try to be back. We'll try to do another episode next week, I guess, to see what's going on. Hopefully look up for some panels. Hopefully we'll probably try to get those coming back as soon as possible. And like we said, we're just slowing down. I'm trying to, I think, start a video about, because Elon Musk has sparked my, I realized I wrote something a little bit earlier, down about how Elon Musk and the illusion of hardworking billionaires. And I kind of want to follow up. I wrote that down on a note card earlier this year. And I found it, and I was like, "This is perfect. This is perfect for." I'm gonna write this. I think I'm gonna write that, and try to make a video about that soon. So, and starting work tomorrow. So, the schedule is going to be everyone's on the team is pretty much a little bit busy. So we're gonna be finding out what we're doing, and we're gonna get our schedule back, and we'll get our groove back. But right now, life is just whoosh.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right, but hopefully we'll be back next week.
Absolutely.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Peace. Don't forget to subscribe, Patreon, Ko-Fi, Telegram. All the links are below the description. Peace.